Hi there and welcome back to Best Practice TV, and this is a live webinar for ISO 9001 2015. It's got my top tips and tricks, and I'm just going to adjust the camera so you've got better lighting. There we go. And so what we're going to do is take you through ISO 9001. I've got a presentation for you, so I'm going to take you through some slides, which is absolutely fantastic. It's all going on here at Best Practice, so this is live. It's the real office environment. I'm going to distract everybody for the next hour while I look after you and we take you through ISO 9001. So I'm just going to share my desktop here with you and pop you into the presentation, which is here, and we're just going to hit the present button. Now I'll present to everyone. Here we go. So what we're going to start to see is this stuff over here. I'm just going to hit present. Okay, so I'm going to check in with my technical team and see that they can see everything. So how are you going, Shirley? Perfect. Okay, so I'm Kobe Simmet. I'm the CEO here at Best Practice, and what I've got for you today is a quick presentation where we're going to talk about ISO 9001 2015, and we're going to talk about some highlights and some focus points for you. I'm just going to reach over here and grab a copy of the standards so I can have that handy and I can talk you through that. So first and foremost, what I want to do is obviously welcome you here to Best Practice. I want to just talk to you a little bit about who we are and what we do and what's going on here. So Best Practice is an organisation that's a business improvement agency. We're here for you, and we're ultimately here and very passionate about helping businesses improve every day. And so everything we're doing here at Best Practice is focusing on maybe setting up a self-evaluation cycle is probably the best way to look at this, and then encouraging you to use that Best Practice self-evaluation cycle, which might be maybe relying on an international standard like ISO 9001 and using ISO 9001 to improve your business and ultimately the amazing experience that your customers have. Why do we do that? Because if your customers have an amazing experience, your organisation is going to grow, because your customers are going to tell their friends and family and colleagues and work colleagues about you and about the amazing experience, and the word of mouth referral business growth strategy, well, there's nothing better than it. So here at Best Practice, we're focusing on a couple of different types of services and how we help you there. We use something like ISO 9001 to maybe conduct assessments. So, guide, motivate, encourage you to use the benefits of ISO 9001 to grow your business and improve your customers' experience. And then separately to that, so we will do assessments in that part or audits. And then separately over in our training portal is lots of training courses to empower you and give you high levels of knowledge around what different aspects of your business you can improve. A lot of what we talk about here at Best Practice is different types of risk. So today we're obviously talking about ISO 9001 and using ISO 9001 to improve your customers' experience, but also we can talk about improving workplace safety. We can talk about your environmental footprint and things like carbon footprint and the different types of pollution or different raw materials that your business would consume. That's obviously something that's quite important to talk about, and that's risk management. We could talk about your data security and protecting your customers' information and your own information in the form of data security. So they're all different types of risks that you can use different international standards to manage. So today's webinar is sponsored by the Best Practice Training Academy, and the team there have done a great job to help me or help get me in front of you today in this webinar, which is absolutely excellent. And it's all part of our strategy to help improve competency out there in the marketplace, and by improving the people that work in organisations, those organisations will improve, and then the customers will have a much more amazing experience. So the Training Academy have got some great courses. Obviously, we do lots and lots of stuff on social media that you guys can consume for free on places like Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. There's tons of great stuff, and there's lots of little samples of free content that we put out on those social media platforms, which is absolutely fantastic, and that's all driven by the Best Practice Training Academy. There's a special offer that they've got for you today. So for the people that have participated in this webinar today, and it's only for you guys, there's a package deal that you can use the link that's in the description to this video, and you can also use the link that's in your registration email for this webinar to jump across into the Training Academy and purchase a package deal, which is an ISO 9001 course, where I take you in detail through each clause of the standard, and I discuss the intent and how you can apply that. So it's very much a word by word, clause by clause guide through the ISO 9001-2015 standard. So today's about some focus points and some top tips and tricks, but I'd encourage you to take up that offer. So it's about a 65% discount on the training course, and it's obviously just to let you know that obviously that's the revenue generating activity of this business in an online environment that pays me to be able to deliver this content to you for free. So we'd love for you to take up on that offer, because that's obviously going to fund more free webinars. So you're going to get tons and tons of value out of everything you do with best practice. And we'd appreciate if you at least went over and had a look at that amazing course. It's a massive discount. And I'd encourage you to take it up. It's only going to be available for about the next 7 days, and then we're going to take it down because it's just for the participants of this webinar. And I'd encourage you to grab that. So you'll jump across there and you'll see that course. So follow that link and have a look at it. So that's the complimentary training offer that is complimentary. Complements this course. So the other thing I'd encourage you to do, if for whatever reason you have a technology issue in following this webinar, don't panic. It's going to be live on YouTube, obviously live on YouTube and live on Facebook, and also it's going to sit in our YouTube channel for probably about 2 weeks, so you can go back and you can rewatch it. So if for whatever reason you drop out, or if there's a technology hitch, don't stress. We've got a backup copy of the webinar, and we're going to leave the live webinar sitting over on our YouTube channel. So, so without further ado, let's get into it. You can watch this webinar live on Facebook. We're broadcasting live on Facebook when the webinar is running, but you will see a delay. So if you're watching it live on YouTube and you're watching it live on Facebook, we're going to be up to different spots. YouTube has about a 4-second delay, depending on the day. Could be 4, can be a 10-second delay to YouTube live. Facebook do their best to broadcast live with probably only a split-second delay. So, and the last thing is go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn at Kobe Simmet, on Twitter, and you can definitely follow our company Facebook page and our company YouTube channels, because you're going to get lots more of this great content. Okay, so let's get into ISO 9001, and I'm conscious of time, so I'll get through this for you guys, and then we'll move into some questions, which is absolutely fantastic. But let's get into ISO 9001. Look, I think at the end of the day, if you haven't heard about or you don't know about ISO 9001, then we can spend some more time referencing some of our YouTube videos to give you a bit of an insight into it. But for those of you out there, and I've had a look at the people that registered, I've had a look at your list, and I know who's out there. And so for those of you that know me and have met me personally, hello, I've seen you on the list, so you all know who you are. For those that I haven't met yet, let's make some time to catch up. Either have a Google Hangout or a Skype call or a telephone call. I love sharing this sort of stuff, and those of you that know me, know and love, know that I love giving this stuff away for free and helping you guys out, because I love seeing businesses grow and improve, and also people grow in their own areas of profession. So ISO 9001, what's it all about? Let's go back to some first principles. ISO 9001 has a primary focus on managing customer satisfaction. Now they're the words, and that's the language and the lingo that the standard uses. And I do tend from time to time to drift off into other analogies and definitions, because I think they're relevant and they're sometimes more meaningful for us. This is an international standard that is global. It's for everybody. It's translated into a number of different languages, so it can be applied. And so when you use an ISO 9001 management system with a primary focus on customer satisfaction in different languages, you can see consistency across the world in terms of what it's trying to achieve. So ultimately, it's trying to guide you to put a system in place to identify what your customers' requirements are. Maybe start thinking about what some of the requirements that your customers have specify, and then sort of build on that. And I think if you've watched, well, I know that if you've watched any of our YouTube channels, this is a sort of consistent opinion that I've had for a number of years, and it's that there's a ton of promises that your sales team will make to your clients or your customers, whether it's your website or whether it's actually physically a sales rep for your business, but the business development salespeople in your business, they'll make promises. But there's often a ton of promises that get, implied, if you like. And it's often when those things are forgotten or not addressed that your customers truly have a disappointing or upsetting experience with your business. And that's ultimately what ISO 9001 is trying to prevent. So it's ultimately trying to prevent a negative customer experience, and then ultimately be used to enhance the customer's experience. We'll get into that further in the presentation. With the new version of the standard, it's more specifically focusing on the management of risk. And ISO 9001, while its primary focus is on management of customer satisfaction and customer, meeting customers' expectations or meeting and enhancing customers' expectations, it can also be used to manage other areas of risk in the business. And so I've been saying for a very long time that you can use ISO 9001 as a business planning mechanism or framework. And so if the business or organisation that you're working for or working with doesn't have a sort of a public business plan, ISO 9001 starts to talk about things like objectives and targets and monitoring and measurement and processes. It talks about customers' requirements, all those sorts of things. And if you do look at a business plan, some of the real simple formats for business plans, they're all about sort of, this is where we want to go, this is what we want to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is who's going to do what. This is how we're going to grow the business. This is what the people are going to be, the org chart, the resources we need, the tools, equipment, offices, suppliers, contractors, all that sort of stuff. And then you obviously put a budget behind it. So ISO 9001, and I've said this for a very long time, and I've used it myself, can be used to write up a business plan, and the quality management system can form that integral part. So if people are asking you for a business plan, maybe it's an opportunity to look at being efficient and merge the business plan and the quality management system together, and then obviously focus on those risk areas across the business. So at this stage, yes, if you're very clever, you can use a quality management system to manage workplace health and safety. You can use it to manage environmental management issues in the business, data security, financial risk, those sorts of things. But there are some other standards that maybe for a more immature understanding, and I use, I don't say immature in terms of young, I say immature in terms of a not mature understanding of 9001. You can use those other standards, like there's the new standard ISO 45000 coming out at the end of the year for workplace health and safety, or you can use ISO 14001 for environmental risks. So ISO 9001 also helps in identifying and managing customer expectations, and that's certainly been the approach up until this version of the standard. And then, in terms of identifying and managing customer expectations, it has been until 2015 that the methodology behind building a quality management system. So I think what's happened in this new version of the standard, which is really, really exciting, is that it's been probably the best upgrade since the standard was first drafted in 1994 to the standard, to give you a better methodology and I think a better logical risk flow. And I have a very logical mind in terms of problem solving, and I think this is the best approach that we've seen. So up until 2015, obviously what I'm saying there is it didn't go well. The quality management industry lost its way, and it's been criticised, and I've sort of taken that as a personal, pilgrimage, if you like, is to globally change the view of the quality, ISO 9001 framework, and certainly the use of management system standards to run businesses. I think it's a good way. There's a ton of support out there on the internet now that's really easily accessible, and so new people, the 20-plus-year-olds that are coming into your organisations and starting to be the people that are coming up through the management levels, they can rely quite heavily now on the internet to learn very quickly. And I think it's now time that, globally as an industry, that the quality management slash management advisory industry started to accept the fact that we are actually there to help organisations grow, and rather than fumble our way through, be very clear about how we do that. And so ISO 9001 now is a really good, simple methodology to follow, and it's prescriptive to some extent, but it's a good way to follow and build the skeleton, if you like, of your organisation, and start putting some meat around it as time goes on. So, in terms of the quality industry losing its way, there's obviously a ton of common complaints, and there's lots and lots and lots, and I just brainstormed these ones out for you. we've got common complaints that we hear at Best Practice. We've got thousands of policies and procedures that we have to keep updating, and it costs a fortune. It's a nightmare. It's all people focus on. It's all this really, really expensive toner on paper, and people don't read it anyway. They've said that ISO 9001 audits and quality management's just a box-ticking exercise. And, I think that, dropping to the minimum standard has been what's happening across the industry as a whole globally. And there are obviously some organisations that are embracing it, but I think by and large, human nature is to take the path of least resistance. And without, a lot of energy and conscious accountability out there in industries and organisations, there's a bunch of people out there that have given the industry a bad name by just, making it a horrible experience for organisations who are choosing to adopt this. So this is, I'm holding to account the external professionals, like people in my team, to actually be, focusing on their own professional development as an influencer. And that's a one-on-one influencer when you're out there doing that sort of stuff. So we want to get away from this box-ticking exercise, because we really want to see, the systems that we build and implement and execute on and improve really adding value to the top line of the organisation. When I say adding value, adding revenue to the top line of the organisation, adding profit to the bottom line of the organisation, and also adding dollar value to the share price of the organisation. So if you work for a private organisation or a public organisation, you want to be starting to talk, if you're in this space and you're using this standard, start talking about opening a conversation about the share price, because I can guarantee that a robust, implemented management system for managing risks in a business will contribute to the increase in capital value of a business. Lots of complaints about does nothing for our business, like we've got it and it just does nothing. And so, we do manage those sorts of expectations and issues and complaints from time to time. The external auditors keep changing, and I think that's by and large that there are some people that have entered this industry that really want to be here, and then there's other people that are just sort of doing it as a stopgap measure. So that is something that needs to be managed, but it's obviously a common complaint. No one reads our procedures, and it's a waste of time. So definitely a common complaint for lots of people out there. So what I wanted to do was just take you through ISO 9001 2015, just at a really high top tips focus points level for you to talk quickly about some changes. Don't forget over in our training portal that there is some stuff available where you can do like a clause by clause course on ISO 9001, and we'll take you through the clauses, and I'll take you through that in the training portal. So you can grab that link that's at the bottom of the description here and go through it. So if you're sort of craving, you want more about what's in each clause of the standard, then that course is sitting there in the training portal for you. But just to give you sort of a high-level top tips point here on ISO 9001 2015, a quick review of the changes. It's moved to take a risk-based approach to customer focus. But what does that mean? If you've watched any of our other YouTube videos, I have the same opinion as I've had for a very long time, and the standards come around to my way of thinking, which is excellent, and that is that we make promises to our customers, and we do that in our features and benefits statement. We do it in bullet points on our website. We do it in brochures. We do it every day as we're sort of promoting our organisation, our 30-second elevator pitch. We're talking to our friends, when we go out to dinner with them, or we catch up with our friends, at a picnic or whatever, and they say, "Who do you work for? What do you do?" Then those are the sort of promises. This is what we do for people. So I think what's really, really important is to be thinking about those promises and maybe trying to document them or capture them. And then what happens if you actually don't deliver on that promise? And that's what your quality management system's all about. It's about coming up with systems and processes and in sets of instructions to give people guidance, training, reporting, systems, those sorts of things, to bring that risk of not delivering on a promise across into a management system, and having your team, your organisation, your group of people on board to keep focusing on your customers. ISO 9001 2015 becomes a little bit more silent on writing lots and lots of documents. It says document things and it says capture things, but there's not the reference to the 6 mandatory procedures that there was in the 2000 edition of the standard, and there's not the reference to 18 procedures that there was in the 1994 edition of the standard. So what's happened now is that I definitely have the view, and it's something that we're building towards here at Best Practice, is that you can use all the amazing multimedia formats available to be starting to put your quality management system together. And I can honestly say something that's been really successful here at Best Practice is the way we've changed the delivery of our training and how we sort of drip feed new knowledge across to our team. We use a private, closed Facebook group. And so everybody here in the business is either on Facebook because they're already there, or specifically using Facebook for business-only purposes. So they have the Facebook app on their iPhone. So everyone here at Best Practice has an iPhone. There's a Facebook group, and then we post in that group little short posts, little snippets of content that people can consume when they have time. And then we monitor who's seen each of the posts. And we chase up people. We say, hey, you haven't seen that post. We can see you haven't logged in and seen the stuff in the Best Practice group. So we can do that from an accountability perspective, and it's a great system for tracking who's seen what. But also, it's then got the engagement component where people can ask questions in the comment, specifically under the post. So we don't need to bring people together now for whole company training courses and training sessions. They can, and so we've got a lot more flexibility around how that knowledge is slowly absorbed by our team. And then obviously we monitor and measure the changes and increases to performance. So it is a little bit more silent, not totally silent, but a little bit more silent on keeping records and writing documents. Ultimately, you want to build some evidence for your stakeholders, people like your shareholders and your investors and those sorts of things at the top end of the organisation that are taking the big financial risk. To run the business, you want to, they do like to have some evidence that things are happening and in place, and the standard has said, okay, we'll keep a record or document this. So it's often for purposes of communication rather than just being keep a record, So you can see within a section of the standard now where it says keep a record of this, you could probably nominate what relevant stakeholder that would be for, rather than it just being for the purposes of the standard. The standard's been realigned to be more to the more successful format of the management system standards. The jargon in the industry is Annex SL. So the new standards has been mapped against Annex SL. And if you've been working with ISO 14001 for a number of years, I started working with it back in 1996. ISO 14001 I felt was a great flow. ASNZS, which is the Australian standard here in Australia, 4801 had a good flow. So what's happened globally now is that the ISO standards now follow a set format, so that if you are integrating a management system, so you've got a number of different ISO standards in your organisation for managing risk, they'll all follow that same flow, and it's much easier to integrate because the three committees got together and said, hey, let's make this a consistent way to write the standard, and then you guys can follow it, which is excellent. So it will sit really neatly with 14001 instead of conflicting with it like it used to. And it's a logical flow. Think about what you're going to do. So, if your mother used to say, think about the consequences of your actions, then that's exactly the approach now with ISO 9001. It says, think about how you're going to upset your customers before you actually upset them. How are we going to stop that happening? And then, then put something in place. And then that's a good approach to trying to minimise the potential instead of just taking a massive uncontrolled risk. It's the most ISO 9001 2015 is the most exciting upgrade to ISO 9001 that I've seen in my career. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it reinforces the self-evaluation and improvement cycle that you see there, which is plan, do, check, and act, which is absolutely fantastic cycle, and you'll see that in lots of our YouTube videos and lots of our Facebook videos that we put out. So I'm going to give you 5 focus points. Now, this video and this webinar is going to sit on our YouTube channel, and you can jump back onto YouTube on a smartphone, and you can do a screenshot of this slide if you want to hang on to any of this stuff. You can press pause. And you can take a screenshot from the device that you're watching on. So I'd recommend that you do that. Come back to it if you don't know how to do that screenshot right now, and that's a good way to take notes, or you can write some notes down. And so what I would recommend that you focus on with ISO 9001 is getting a good understanding of the preamble. And so that is page 6. So VI there is page 6 and what it's saying. So page 6, and I've got a copy of the standard here, which is the preamble to the actual standard. That's the introduction. And what it's talking about is a couple of things, and I'll quote from the standard here, is the adoption of a quality management system is a strategic decision for an organisation that can help to improve its overall performance and provide a sound basis for sustainable development initiatives. Now, that is the first 2 lines of the standard. And what I've observed out there in industry and out there in my career is that people completely ignore this part of the standard. And so we go into ISO 9001 completely missing its intent. So the intent of ISO 9001 is that it's first and foremost, the adoption of a quality management system is a strategic decision, and it's about improving the overall performance of the organisation and providing a sound basis for sustained and sustainable development initiatives, which is the growth of the business. Now, when I have conversations with lots and lots of organisations, as do my team here at Best Practice and out there in conferences and the discussions I see, all of the complaints and all those sorts of things completely ignore this first statement in ISO 9001. So if you are in a position where you want to maybe take away an outcome from this webinar, that you want to be more effective at influencing the team of people around you, whether it's the leaders above you in an organisation or the people that you lead, I think it's very important to read this page of the standard and follow it and understand that, you know, this is the standard saying this stuff, and you can rely back to this page and you can refer back to this page and give people guidance. And you will sometimes feel like a broken record where you've got to say this stuff over and over and over again, and I do feel that from time to time. But people, once they get an understanding of this, I see too many organisations adopting a quality management system and it's not a strategic decision. It's just it's like a spur of the moment, you know, brain snap of the CEO or the leaders in the business to say, we've got to go get ISO because we've got a client that says we have to have it, without acknowledging that it is actually a strategic decision. And it's a big decision in the business, because in theory, ISO 9001 becomes the backbone of the implementation of the business plan. And that is exactly where it should sit in an organisation. It shouldn't be something, the quality management system shouldn't be something that sits over on the side. When it is truly embedded in the core foundation of how an organisation runs, that's when you get the true benefit, the true bottom line net profit benefit, the true top line revenue growth, and the true capital value growth of a business, which I think are really important as it relates to increased customer happiness and increased, you know, if you look at the likelihood to refer, you know, new metric where people are talking about, you know, the referral score in organisations, your customers are more likely to speak positively about you via word of mouth, which is the cheapest form of advertising, if you've got a good quality management system that you're physically using. The second focus point that I think is really important, and this is my advice, I live and breathe this stuff every day, is the quality management principles on page 7 there. I apologise for the Roman numerals, but I'm telling you to go look in the standard. And there's 7 quality management principles that have been around for a very long time. They're tried, tested, and proven, and the fact that they're still here in the standard, more explicitly stated, I think we should pay attention to them. And that the first quality management principle is that we are customer focused. So we hear lots and lots of stuff now in social media that there's really 3 stakeholders that you can serve in an organisation. You can serve your customers, you can serve your staff, or you can serve your shareholders. We know organisations that serve their shareholders are a nightmare to deal with as a customer. And we know that organisations that serve their staff can also be a nightmare to deal with, but equally they're all 3 very important stakeholders. So with the quality management system, there's a principle on customer focus, and that's around taking customer focus and putting that one notch above leadership, which is obviously people. Now, interestingly, the second and third quality principles are leadership and engagement of people. So the people in your organisation are obviously the most important for ensuring customer satisfaction. So I don't want to write that off, but I do want to say that focusing on your customers is the reason that you're there, and that's how you make your money and grow your business, provide your services that you do. Otherwise, you might as well just go and have a family holiday or spend time at the beach or something like that. So leadership is the next point. where leadership is really, really important, and we talk a lot on our YouTube channel about the leader setting the tone, and that being very, very important, and having that that really positive mindset. So it's nice to see that that's the second principle there in the quality principles. Engagement of people, well, that's an absolute. Of course, that's important. And one of the analogies we talk here at Best Practice about is the theory of cooking an amazing chocolate cake. So if you guys out there like chocolate cake as much as I do, then you know, the first thing we do when we want to make a chocolate cake, if we haven't memorized the recipe, is we go find a recipe, and maybe we do a Google search and have a look for an amazing chocolate cake recipe. Get the ingredients together and sort of have a bit of a look at the method and the instructions in terms of how to put this together. That's a quality management system. We're making a promise, and we're saying, here's a recipe for an amazing chocolate cake, and then here's a method, and here's the ingredients, the inputs, if you like, and the output. You know, if you follow all those instructions, then the output's going to be pretty good. Now, I've heard people complain over the years that, hey, but when I cook, it never turns out right. Well, let's not forget the fact that you need to practice. So practice, 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 and perfect practice makes perfect. So don't expect your team to be given a new procedure and then get it right on the first go. And in modern leadership, we're starting to talk now about allowing your team to fail. And I think it's important to understand all the analogy or the terminology and phrases and speeches that I give to my team are around give them time to practice, and practice in a controlled environment. And so I think it's fair to say that the business needs to embrace that. Then, you know, don't have the expectation that everyone's going to get it right first time. And importantly, if they're taking too long to get their shit together, then that's obviously that's a performance management issue. But you do want to have this opportunity that when you do make changes in the business, allow the business time to mature over time. Process approach. So, you know, when we talk about making an amazing chocolate cake, read and digest and study the recipe, assemble the ingredients, preheat the oven. Sorry, when I say assemble the ingredients, procure the ingredients, preheat the oven, and then start following the methodology that's been prescribed. And that's a process approach, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Too often we see when we're assessing businesses for best practice certification to ISO 9001, we see just this ad hoc random approach. And I do see, even in some of the team here at Best Practice, you know, for example, you know, they react to emails through the day instead of having a process approach to how they manage their particular day. So here's my plan, here's my priorities, and this is what I'm going to do. So the process approach there as the fourth principle. Improvement is another one of the quality management principles, and that goes without saying. Evidence-based decision-making is probably, you know, I'd like to reinforce that that's a focus point there in one of those principles. And we'll talk later on about the dashboard that we run here at Best Practice and why that's really important. But evidence-based decision-making, not subjective comments, commentary, politics, all those sorts of things in an organisation. You're looking at facts and figures and numbers, and then obviously relationship management. And in relationship management there, we're referring to relationship management with your customers and truly managing that relationship, and so that you can dig deeper to find out what their real expectations and concerns are. And the same with your suppliers, particularly suppliers of some of your ingredients and your inputs to your services. I think it's really important to have that very open relationship with them because they are an extension of your team. So the third, fourth and fifth focus points there on the slide that I want you to focus on, which are my top tips for getting ISO 9001 right, is the plan, do, check, act cycle of improvement. And that's really, really critical. And it's doing that little cycle lots and lots of times on lots of little things in the business, not just doing these wholesale restructures and expecting everyone to get it right. So embedding across your team the concept of plan, do, check, act, plan, do, check, act. And I'll use an analogy, a personal analogy, and that is one of doing exercise and staying fit and healthy. You can't, well, it's often not a successful approach to just go and do all of your exercise in 1 week of the year. So, you know, you spend 5 days or 7 days of 1 year doing all your exercise and then do nothing for the rest of the year. It's important to look after your health, and it's important to exercise. And I won't go into the, you know, all of the evidence and all of that stuff right now, but you can't just do plan, do, check, act cycle once in a year in a business. I believe and it's my opinion that that's something that is happening on a daily basis. So you have small incremental improvements and growth of the business on a daily basis. So when you talk about ISO 9001, what I'm saying there is don't go and do all your internal audits in one day or 1 week of the year. Don't just do your management review once a year. Don't just do procedural updates once a year. Don't just do staff training once a year. It needs to be something that's on an ongoing basis, and you're obviously doing every day because you're running your business. So check every day, act every day, plan every day, and keep going through that little cycle of continual improvement on a regular and frequent basis. So page 9 of the standard there, and I just want to draw your attention to, there's a heading there on page 9 before you get into the nuts and bolts of the standard, which talks about risk-based thinking. And what's, I think, important to identify there, and I'm going to quote here from the standard, it says, risk-based thinking is essential for achieving an effective quality management system. The concept of risk-based thinking has been implicit, so they suggested it, but they didn't express it specifically and directly. So it's been implicit in previous editions of the international standard, including, for example, carrying out preventative action to eliminate potential nonconformities, analysing any nonconformities that do occur, and taking action to prevent recurrence that is appropriate for the effects of the nonconformity. So what's happened now is that the ISO 9001 community that's written this standard and contributed to this standard have realised that they probably were a bit too complicated in giving a description, and certainly in training courses that I've been running over the last 20 years on this stuff has been saying, hey, you know, that thing preventative action that ISO 9001 talks about, that's actually risk management. And so now I don't need to say that anymore because the standards come around. And so what I'm pointing out there is that word implicit. So it has been suggested. So it's not a radical change. It's just a more, you know, it's a more modern way of thinking, and the standard is coming up to speed with what modern management's talking about, which I think is excellent, and it's that concept of risk-based thinking. And then the last thing I want to draw your attention to, which I think is the most critical part of the standard, and it always has been, and it's the biggest deficiency in all the organisations we work with across the board when we do trends analysis on who does what well, is the concept of analysis and evaluation, and specifically section 9.1.3. So if you don't do anything except read one section of this standard, and I know that lots of people, you know, they put on their list, they think, oh, and if you're one of these people out there thinking, I really should read that standard, I haven't sort of gotten into it, and you're feeling guilty right now, and I want to make you feel guilty. If I could just ask that you read this one clause and learn this one clause word for word, because it really is, I think, the most important clause of the standard in understanding it and then executing on it. And it's not just about doing ISO 9001, it's just about being in business and working in a business on a day-to-day basis. And it's this concept of analysis and evaluation. If you don't know how you're going, how do you know how you're going? And what the standard says is that the organisation shall analyse and evaluate appropriate data and information arising from monitoring and measurement. And we need to look at, you know, defects of products and services, the degree of customer satisfaction, the performance of and effectiveness of the quality system, if our planning's been implemented effectively, if our controls for our risks have been implemented effectively, the evaluations of actions taken to address risks and opportunities, the performance of our external providers and suppliers, the need for improvements to the quality management system and the business. And that, in my view, in my opinion, is the most critical part of, and the starting point for any business, running any business, whether you implement ISO 9001 or not. And too often I see people just cruising along without having a milestone. So a regular, you know, we check in monthly on our financials, you'll do your month-end reporting, but that, you know, that you didn't achieve the financial objective. So you didn't make the profit that you wanted to make, or the business didn't do the financial results they wanted to do. And then you get into this subjective discussion about why that happened. Oh, it's because of this and because of that and because of the other. So taking a fact-based approach to setting up a dashboard, I think, is really important, and I will talk about that more as we get into a couple more clauses of the standard. I am conscious of time. I know there's a ton of questions. We'll get to those in a minute. I've just got a little bit more to cover with you. I'm obviously very passionate about it. And I'm getting the nod to hurry up. So I'll keep moving for you. I hope you're enjoying it. So as we move on, I'm just going to draw your attention to two clauses, and we'll go through those, which is section 6 And I'm not working from any notes. I've got the ISO 9001-2015 standard right here in front of me. So I'm just referring directly to the standard and I'm reading the clauses. And in section 6, when you're looking at that part and you're thinking about, what we need to do, it starts off with actions to address risks and opportunities. So when planning for the quality management system, the organisation shall consider the issues referred to in establishing the context, which is section 4.1, and the requirements referred to in 4.2, which is your customers' actual things that they want. They want it to be, they want that thing they're going to buy to be red. They want it to be warm, whatever their specific things are, but also if there's any legal requirements there. So then we think about determining risks and opportunities that need to be addressed. People often ask, well, what's a risk? And so my first response is, well, what do you think you could do to upset your customer? So what does your business actually do? What do your customers actually want? And then your QMS has enhanced effects. So what can we do to enhance our desirable effects and use your quality management system to prevent or reduce undesired effects? So what does your business actually do? So what are the actual services that you deliver to your customer? And too often I hear leaders in business saying we're this, which is it's where they want to be, but it's not where they are right now. And then also thinking about what your customers actually want. And I often, as the CEO, get presented to by potential suppliers, and they don't actually ask me what is it that I want from the service. They put all this extra stuff in, and I just don't value it. And they're saying, we've got the most features and benefits of anybody, but I don't value it. And so, Microsoft is a good example of that. If you look at any of the Microsoft products, thousands and thousands of features and benefits in Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint, but half of us don't use even a quarter of those features. So I think it is really important for you to have a conversation with the planners, the people that need to plan, and the leaders in the business, the management in the business, in the first instance, and then separately, everybody in the business might participate in some way in, communicating in their interaction with the customer or the customer contact, what forms part of a critical thing that they make sure happens. And then ultimately build this management system, or this set of controls, if you like, to enhance the desirable effects of the service you provide to your customer. So this is focused on your customer, and then use your quality management system and risk controls to prevent or reduce undesired effects. And I think start with, and if you want to write some notes here, start with bill shock. So you engage commercially with your customer and what can create bill shock. So think about times in your life where you've received a bill for something and you've just been blown away. It's like, oh my God, that's expensive. Have a think about that and think about what are some of those undesirable effects. So do you ever give your customer bill shock? And I know that some of the organisations that, some of you guys there that are out listening and watching this webinar right now, I know that you work for organisations that have caused bill shock. And so I know it happens, so I want you to think about that. So how can you prevent bill shock in the first instance? We've done it. We're guilty, and I work consistently to try and minimise bill shock to our customers and being very prescriptive up front about what we're going to do and get agreements. And they're often very uncomfortable conversations, particularly in service industries. So, in terms of section 6 of the standard, that's what it's all about. So those are the sorts of things I want you to think about. What are the promises you've made? What is it that you actually do? What is, do you actually provide a solution? Like, are you solving a problem for your customer? Because often that's what they're hoping to pay for. They've got a problem, they've got a challenge, and they come to you and you solve that for them and they pay you money. And then lastly, communicating with your team, communicating customers' requirements, and also, communicating is two ways, right? It's not about just pushing out information. It's about the two-way communication with your team about customer requirements, the two-way communication with your team about their role and their responsibilities. And so, another form of the trends analysis, or another part of the trends analysis we've looked at with our team here at Best Practice is the concept of planned delegation versus assumed responsibilities, where too often we see businesses growing out of control versus growing in control, and people just assume a responsibility. So a small change happens and people sort of assume the responsibility. And I'll give you an example of a football team or a soccer team, if you're in Australia calling it soccer, is the goalie assuming the responsibility of the striker and leaving the goal to go up to the other end of the field to shoot a goal or strike a goal instead of staying on their post and staying in their position. So when we're talking about communicating with your team, it's around what's the leader's view for establishing the posts in the organisation, so the positions of people, and then communicating, this is your post, this has been created for you to do this specific thing because it's part of our whole process, and the business requires you to stay in that post so that we can continue to manage this particular issue. From time to time, the business will call you off that post and into another area of the business to help out, but go back to that post. And I think that's a really important conversation to be having with your team so that you've got planned delegation and planned responsibilities instead of assumed responsibilities. And if you need to use that football pitch, soccer match analogy, the goal is there to protect the goal in the circumstance where the other team's attacking. And if the goalie goes up to the other end of the field, can they get back to their end of the field quick enough? So I think that's a really important conversation. So I've got one more clause of the standard to go through with you, which is performance evaluation. And I drew your attention to section 9.1.3, and I'll just turn back to the back of the standard here, that the whole of section 9 is around tracking and looking at performance. And I think that, it's the performance evaluation section of the standard. And I am running out of time, so I'll just go through it quickly. But it's talking about the actual problems with products and services and defects. And so it's actual, right? So remember, one of the quality principles we talked about was fact-based approach to decision-making. We've got a little dashboard down here on the side of the screen for you. So I think that's really important that here at Best Practice, we have 30 statistics that we put into a graph, and we produce them every Monday, and we look at the previous week's performance and we say, how'd we go? What can we do to actually get a better result this week? And it's something that we're humans and sometimes we ignore that, but it's definitely something that we try and do on a week-to-week basis instead of maybe once a year. So if you're a business that is maybe sending out a report of your performance once a year, then I would be strongly encouraging you to be thinking about it a lot more often so that you can track your performance and you can know how you're going. And, whether you're an Olympic swimmer or an Olympic athlete or Usain Bolt, they're always looking at what they can do to tweak and improve their performance. And they've got coaches and advisors and all those sorts of professional people around them helping to tweak their performance and analyze small parts of what they can do. So, and that's all about growing and changing and improving your business so that your customers have a more amazing experience. Customer satisfaction measurement is really, really important. And so one of the more modern emerging trends is around, customers' likelihood to refer. So would your customers tell their friends and family, or would your customers tell their clients or their suppliers about your service because it's been so amazing? And there are thousands and thousands of examples of the growth of businesses out there in the marketplace, and Uber would be one of those. So I've told hundreds and hundreds of my friends about Uber, and Uber's, it's grown massively. As I've told hundreds and hundreds of my friends about my amazing experiences with Apple products and the use of Apple products. So managing and tracking customer satisfaction is very important, and please do not send your customers a survey. And my example would be there is, I'll ask you all a question. If I send you a survey, and we will probably be doing that after this training course, but don't send them out a form to fill out. So have a think about the best way to engage with your customer to ask you if they liked or didn't like your service, or liked or didn't like your webinar. So if you like this webinar, maybe hit the thumbs up button underneath the video so that we can see how many people liked it. If you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down, and we'll see what we can do to definitely improve it. Effectiveness of risk controls is really important. So at the very beginning of ISO 9001, it talks about thinking about risk analysis, identifying risks and areas that you can stuff up in the business. What I'd like you to do is come back to that and say, well, did that actually work, or did we upset people? Opportunities for improvement is obviously a key area there to be evaluating and looking for and identifying opportunities for improvement, with one disclaimer. it is very important to be thinking about filtering opportunities for improvement. I've seen too many good ideas implemented in businesses when they should have stayed on the good ideas shelf. And I know that sounds funny, but often things are a good idea, but they're just not commercially practical and they don't do anything to improve customer satisfaction, but they got implemented, money and time and effort got wasted on it. And it's frustrating for the team when those things don't work. So if you want to quote me on this, is it a good idea and you should implement it, or is it a good idea that can stay on the good ideas shelf? Lots of focus on planned business priorities. So creating this dashboard keeps people focused on the actual priorities, the actual things that we need to focus on, and we don't drift as a business. And then obviously creating that performance management dashboard. So that's section 9 of the standard. So they're probably the 2 parts of the standard that I believe are the most important. The rest, once you've got a handle on those 2 parts of the standard, everything does then just start to fall into place. And as you go through and build your business management system, everything starts to make a lot more sense and is much easier when you take that particular approach. So I just want to say thank you very much to my team for sorting out the technology and pulling everything together. And those are the team here from the Best Practice Training Academy. And there's a screenshot of what it looks like. So you can jump onto our website. It's there for you all the time. So if you've got time today, click over and have a look at our training academy. There's this type of format and this type of presentation in an online platform. It's there for you. There's different currencies for different products because we have lots of people all over the world. In this webinar, we've got people from all over the world participating, and I'd like to thank you for taking your amazing time out of your amazing day to come and learn with me, and that's been excellent presenting to you. So that's the Training Academy, and that's the sales in that Training Academy and the sales of those training courses that pays for us to be able to produce this amazing free content for you. So if you have people that would benefit from learning and more knowledge, obviously share this webinar with them and share any of our YouTube videos and encourage them. I'd really appreciate if you encourage them to have a look at these amazing courses that we've got, and they're improving every day as well. That's definitely what's there. So that's our Training Academy. Welcome, and there it is, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I really love putting those courses together, as do the rest of the team. I've just gotten off the phone with a colleague of mine who's putting together some great leadership training, and we're going to make that available through this web store as well. So watch this space. That's amazing. So that limited offer that I talked about at the very beginning of this webinar, and I'll get onto the questions in a minute, was the $299 bundle deal. It's a huge discount when you add up the ISO 9001, the basics course, and the internal auditor training course. And just quickly, what's included there is the step-by-step analysis of each clause of ISO 9001. In the ISO 9001 basics course, we go through every single clause, similar to what we did today, but we obviously spend a lot more time on it, and we go through and click through, and you can press play and press pause and stop and start and write notes and go away and do something else, or just do 15 or 20 minutes each day to get through that content. And ISO 9001 has got it's well over 3 hours of videos to watch. You don't have to watch them all, but they're all there to pause, learn, and go back to. The internal auditor trainings is over 16 hours of stuff in there. It's 16 hours, sounds like a lot, but it's a 2-day training course. So if you've ever been to a 2-day course, it's an online version of a 2-day course. It takes you right the way through conducting internal audits that are part of your quality management system. ISO 9001 says auditors shall be trained, so you can use that training course. Again, once you sign up for that course, it's there for you, and it doesn't go anywhere, so you use your email address and password to log back into it, and it's there for you to continue to use. It's all of our tried and tested internal auditor training course material that we've developed, and it's all been put together, and it's been a collaboration of all of our most experienced assessors, including myself, obviously. And then lots of great videos, activities, and it's all available there online for you guys. So it's I'd encourage you to have a look. Now that offer's just for everyone that's registered on this webinar, and we're going to be taking that down in about 7 days' time. So jump on and grab it, and while it's there, and then everything will go back up to the full price. So questions. So I've got a few questions here which I'll go through. and I'm going to write those up for you, and they'll be part of the live Facebook broadcast, and we'll respond to them. So I'm going to close off the main live broadcast now and answer the questions, because each of the webinars has got a different set of questions, and I'll answer those. So thanks for watching the webinar. Thank you for spending some time with us here at Best Practice, and we hope to see you soon. So please, if you thought of anybody in this webinar that you were speaking, that as I was speaking, you're thinking someone really needs to see this content, and there's tons of great stuff there. Just copy the link and share it across. So copy the link and email it to them, or share it on social media. Absolutely fantastic, and I really appreciate you doing that. That's what we're here for. We want to try and inspire as many people as possible to be improving every day. If you want to reach out to us on social media, please do so. And me personally, at Kobi Simmet, KOBISIMMAT on LinkedIn. Definitely, if you want to connect with me personally on LinkedIn, go right ahead and send me an invite, and I'll accept it. I'm on LinkedIn, for most of the day, every day, looking at the news feed and what's going on out there in the industry, and contributing to discussions. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn, and have a look at our Facebook page. Lots of great offers and deals come out on our Facebook page. And the YouTube channel is there. It's got lots of great videos. You're there in YouTube already, so click the subscribe button. So don't forget to do that as you finish up this webinar. Have a look at some of the other videos. But take advantage of that great training deal that's there. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's a huge discount, and it's only going to be there for 7 days. So thanks for joining us. I'm Kobi Simmet. You might see me out there on the hustle, you might not, but you're definitely going to see me next time on Best Practice TV. So thanks very much for sharing, and we will see you soon.